Hi, welcome back to Ballet Help Desk. Today, we want to talk to you about 3 important questions that will come up as your dancer starts to get more serious about ballet. They are also questions that should be asked throughout the entirety of your child's training.
Yeah, a lot.
And if the answers to these questions change, your dancer may need to reset their expectations and adjust their path. The first question to ask is, what does your child want out of dance? This is so essential that you understand this. For most kids, it is simply a great extracurricular activity, sort of like club soccer. My kid liked running cross country and track.
The school play,
Exactly.
it's super fun.
But for some, it's the vocation that they want to pursue. And we cannot emphasize enough how important it is to ask your child this question.
A lot.
Deciding to train to have a professional career means giving up a lot of normalcy as a teen. And we'll cover that in a bit. But here are a few things that we recommend all parents do. Like we said before, ask your dancer frequently what they want out of dance. We ask our kids all the time.
All the time.
If this is what they want to
All
do.
the time.
In fact, Abby and I just had this conversation last week.
Yeah, even with Sam in a second company, I still regularly ask him if this is the path he wants to go down. And honestly, it can change in an instant.
Absolutely.
Kids get injured, right?
All the time.
Like we've talked about that before. Or they decide they want to have a typical high school experience. Prom's coming up and, a lot of kids, they want to have those experiences.
Boyfriend, girlfriend, all of that stuff changes perspectives.
Quickly, right. Or they get assessed out of a company affiliated school. We've seen that happen and they just decide it's not worth it to continue, or they just get burned out.
Burnout is very real.
Burnout's real, right. We've seen dancers leave large programs mid-year. Yeah. We've seen some trainees at large company affiliated schools decide to hang up their shoes and go to college. Yeah.
And let's be clear, none of these are bad decisions.
Right.
It is what worked for that particular kid at that point in time. One thing you're going to hear from us over and over is that you are a parent first and a manager of a ballet dancer second. Ballet often ends. Parenting
never
does. The second issue that is so important is that these decisions must come from your child, not you. I am sure you have seen all of those sports parents who are reliving their high school glory days through their kids, and we have seen it in ballet as well. We see it in ballet all the time.
All the time.
And you can absolutely not want this for your dancer more than they do.
Yeah, let's be clear. You cannot want a professional career for your dancer more than they do.
It's too hard.
We can't say that enough. And I've seen this over and over again. But here's the problem. Those dancers that are dancing for their parents aren't dancing for themselves, and that really can lead to emotional damage. It was not uncommon for Sam to hear this. I want to quit, but it would crush my parents. Mm-hmm. I also see Facebook groups from parents who have kids who gave up ballet. They use words like empty, devastated, and despondent. Really? Cancer might devastate me.
Yep.
My dog dying might make me despondent.
Definitely.
But quitting ballet, we can understand being sad because it was absolutely a special time in your family. And if your dancer was serious, it probably meant that it was the thing around which your whole family revolved.
Yep.
And it was a special time.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you, I love watching Sam dance. And I will truly miss it if he decides to stop.
Yep.
But if a dancer stops, it's likely for a good reason. And remember, you're the adult. Mm-hmm. Maybe you are devastated. I probably would be. But think how your child will feel if they see that reaction from you. So if your dancer stops dancing, don't be devastated. Be hopeful. Be supportive. Be optimistic that the next steps for your child may be even better than when they were dancing.
That's right. Okay, let's cover the next big question in serious ballet training. Is your child willing to give up a normal life to go after a professional career? And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If your son or daughter wants to become a professional dancer,
They're not a normal kid.
It requires a level of focus, maturity, and determination that most children at young ages do not have. And they just can't handle the amount of work that it requires. However, if you have that kid and they are the one that always wants to dance, wants to take more classes, always talks about dance, here are some things to consider. Do they feel peer pressure about missing stuff? Over the year, my daughter Abby, despite being all in on ballet, definitely feels like she's missing out on the normal kid stuff. Not once did she make it to her best friend's birthday celebration. Sorry, I have dance was the standard reply to most invitations.
Always.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Sam at the time, he didn't feel like he was missing much.
I know.
But you talk to him now, and he definitely feels like there were things he wished he could have done.
Yeah.
But like everything, there's trade-offs. And
always.
Only your own child knows where that line is, and they'll have to make that call for themselves. So there's another conflict that comes up, and that's whether or not your dancer's willing to drop other extracurricular activities. I can't tell you how many times I've seen posts on Facebook from those well-intentioned parents who are trying to get advice on how their child can, do it all. Right. The short answer is, I don't think they can, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Our kids couldn't.
At a certain point, ballet training, it supersedes most everything else in terms of outside activities. Because here's the thing. The time required to become a professional dancer really requires that kids go all in by the time they're teenagers, right?
Yep, absolutely.
There's this thing called the Data Points Guide. It's a report that was recently published that outlines some of the most common paths to a professional career. And it really talks about how you have to do at least one of three things. The first is you have to go to multiple summer programs, which are a lot of fun, by the way.
They're super fun. Ballet camp. Rules.
Great. You also have to attend a ballet program in a major metropolitan city. And 3, you have to leave or reduce regular school to train. And honestly, what we've seen is the most likely path is really all 3 of those.
Yep.
So it doesn't leave a lot of time for other stuff.
The last thing that will happen is your dancer will probably need to leave brick and mortar school and transition to a non-traditional high school. In a future video, we'll go into more detail about the different types of non-traditional education that is out there, because there are a couple of different options. But the short version is that assume that your dancer will be doing some form of non-traditional high school by 10th or 11th grade. I'm sure
and you have to be so ready for it.
You really do. My kid is different. My kid can handle it. My kid can do all of those things. Or you've got friends who claim their kid can do it all. And there are certainly outliers. We're not saying that there's not certain kids that can do that. But most dancers have to give up normal teen life in order to train in a way that you need to have a career. Because it does require a departure from normal teenage life, and it's super important to check in with your dancer and to make sure frequently that this is still the path that they want to follow. Okay, let's switch over to the last question and ask we get all the time. How do I know if my kid's good enough? We have a great blog post that you can find on Ballet Help Desk that goes more in depth on this topic. So rather than rehash what we said in that post, let's specifically talk about ballet studios and how they fit into this. Most ballet teachers and studios have your child's best interest at heart. They really, really want to see the dancers succeed. And the key here is that they want your dancer to have success relative to what your dancer wants out of ballet. That is why it is so important at your studio to look at them as a partner rather than as a service. I've heard so many parents say, hey, I'm paying good money for ballet. My kid should be getting more casting, better attention, more praise, more this, more that, by implying that your child's ballet teacher is merely there to provide a service. And it changes the balance of power and it puts the teacher in a really, really difficult spot. We really suggest that you work hard to change that relationship to a partnership And therefore, you can have much more honest conversations about your child. And the first honest conversation you should have is one that happens right after your kid says they want to dance professionally.
Oh, that's right. When Sam told us he wanted to dance professionally, we kind of laughed.
Well,
but,
sure.
Yeah. But the first person we talked to was his teacher. His teacher was named Jorge Esquivel, and Jorge danced for the National Ballet of Cuba, and then, after defecting from Cuba, made his way to the San Francisco Ballet. So we figured he knew what he was talking about.
I think so.
Yeah. When we talked with him, and we also talked with his daughter who owned the studio where Sam was going at the time, they both told us, yeah, Sam has the facility to have a professional career. Now, mind you, he was young, but they also gave us a pretty big reality check.
Yep.
And this is where we really appreciated the honesty. Sam was still pretty green as a dancer. They told us his turnout wasn't great. Not surprising, since he comes from a long line of pigeon-toed family members.
That is really true.
Yes.
Brett is really pigeon-toed.
Very pigeon-toed. And his back was wonky. His butt kind of stuck out. Maybe a hint of scoliosis?
That happens.
Maybe. And they said his technique needed work, like a lot of work. And finally, they said Sam needed to toughen up. Every time he made a mistake or couldn't get something, he let his frustration get the best of him. And sometimes it was waterworks with it. This was probably the best advice he got because it helped him develop a thick skin and also the grit that you need to make it to that top level.
Mm-hmm.
They said if he fixed all of those things,
just a little bit,
he could potentially have a career. Okay, so that was a lot of fixing. Even though it threw us for a bit of a loop, that advice was fantastic and gave Sam things to focus on going forward. Now, here's where the honesty comes in. I'm also aware of conversations that other parents had with these teachers, and the parents were told that a professional career for their child probably wasn't in the cards. They weren't trying to be mean. They just didn't want that family to invest huge amounts of money and time chasing something that probably wasn't going to happen. And that happens all the time.
And you're probably wondering why teachers wouldn't tell every family that their kid could become a professional dancer. Show me a studio that did that, and I'll show you a studio that went out of business. Why would you send your child to a studio where everyone was told they were going to be a star? All that does is set unrealistic expectations that leads to inevitable letdown. Okay, we've come to the end of our time with you, but we want to recap what we've covered today. So, first, remember to frequently ask your son or daughter what they want out of dance, and be sure to really listen to what they say. Make sure that it is their dream and not yours. The second thing is to always be asking, is your dancer willing to give up normal life? And I know this may change.
Absolutely.
Which is absolutely okay. Finally, figure out what you need to do if your dancer has the potential for a professional career. Mm-hmm. In ballet, as we discussed before, your first stop is meeting with your child's dance teacher. And again, be willing to have the honest conversation. Sometimes it's hard to hear, but you really do. It is so worthwhile to have that conversation. And remember, every studio would love to have the headshots of professional dancers they produced hanging on their wall.
Absolutely. They want all of them.
They want all of them. And we really hope you have found this to be informative and helpful. And as always, if there are topics you would like us to cover in our blog posts or in an in-depth webinar, please head over to our contact form at ballethelpdesk.com and let us know what you're thinking. Remember that this site is for you. So we want to provide you with as much information as we can to help you figure all of this out. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.